Okay, Nietzsche part one. So I was reading your reading assignments, and I have to say, you guys are one of the best classes I've ever had in terms of your reaction to Nietzsche. Congratulations. Really, really good observations. In fact, I'm going to go over a bunch of you guys' observations, and then we'll get in the text. Yes.
I just wanted to say I'm so happy that I did the audio question before the reading assignment because I felt that your nuances and the things you said about how to properly understand Nietzsche really helped me when I was reading it, not just take it as a complete kind of throwing this hate on religion.
Yes, yes. You have to first listen to the introduction, otherwise you will completely misunderstand the author. Efsan, you wanted to? I thought I saw a hand. No, okay. Where was that hand? I saw another hand here. Am I imagining hands? Okay. Yes, excellent. Very good. Yes, thank you for advertising the need to listen to the audio before doing the reading. Excellent. Let me go over some of your remarks. They're really, really good. This one always comes up is the idea of pity. I don't know, I forgot who wrote it because today I'm really tired, so my brain is like working at 10%. You're going to get a 10% level lecture today. Yeah, somebody mentioned pity. So we have to understand why Nietzsche is so against pity, right? If you read some of the texts, and he's like, yeah, this is, weakness. We need to, not have so much pity on people who are weak, let them die. It's basically. So we have to realize what is the problem with pity. Can anyone come up with the idea of what is wrong with pity? Anybody sense with Nietzsche what is perverted about pitying someone? Yes,
Doesn't allow them to progress.
Okay, yes, when you pity from, where are you standing when you pity someone? Below them, at their level, or higher? Always higher. Oh, you poor thing. Right? And remember, Nietzsche himself experienced pity, right? I think I mentioned in the introduction, he was towards the end of his life, he was basically chronically ill. He was in a wheelchair, he had, he was single, and so forth. So yeah, there are so many reasons to pity Nietzsche, right? And he's a very proud man, as you can sense already in the writing, right? He can't stand being pitied. So he's talking from experience and saying, please don't pity. What you need to do is to empathize, not pity, right? There's a difference between empathy, which is coming up. When you're empathizing, where are you? Below, same level, or higher? Exactly. You've lived the thing, and that's why you empathize. You understand what they're going through, and so you empathize. So he's talking like that. He's saying, let's drop the pity. We don't need this pity. Oh, poor thing. Let me help you from my high and lofty place of, redemption, and let me save you. Pity, which is, by the way, at the basis of any type of Western aid. Right? Let's just bring it there. Right? When the West is going around, or whether it's the church or our civilization going around giving aid to different countries, different people. Yes, it's good to have aid, emergency aid, but aid as a policy. Here we are giving you aid and stay there, right? So that we can continue to manipulate and control you with our aid, right? We are really, if we look at the geopolitical context, we are in a context of pity. The West is using that, right, to exert power over different nations, right? So it's broader than just individual pity, right? As a Western nation, we also have a kind of a foreign policy of pity, right? Which we need. By the way, let's talk about that briefly. Let's look at the African continent. Africans right now are very much interested in cooperating with the Chinese and not the West anymore, right? There is a whole, if you go to Africa now, any country, you have a very strong Chinese presence there. And Africans actually prefer to deal with the Chinese than to deal with Europe or the United States. Anybody know why? Or imagine why? Chinese don't pity. Chinese do business. Right? Chinese come in there, they're like, here's the deal. Equality, right? The Chinese don't come like, with big hearts of, pity and let me help you and here I am with my light and you are with your darkness and let me, help you become civilized. Chinese just come for business, right? And actually the Africans prefer that because it's like, okay, now we're a partner. We're not just someone receiving aid, right? So I just had to say that. Okay, moving on. Yes. Okay. So I just wanted to respond on that. Right now, just a few words. One of you was again a little bit offended by the writing style. Remember what I said in the introductory lecture, right? Nietzsche is on purpose speaking with no nuance, right? Making caricatures of Christianity. It's a caricature. I mean, really, if you're coming from a Christian background and you're familiar with Christian text, this is a caricature. But there's truth in this caricature, right? And he makes it really big and very coarse, a portrait of Christianity. Why? To provoke the Christians to anger and therefore to thought. You don't think unless you're angry. Who thinks when they're not angry? You're going to think about something if you're not pissed about something? No. You first have to be triggered before you start to deeply think about anything. And so Nietzsche is trying to trigger Christians, right? Making big, coarse judgments about them, big caricatures, making them look like buffoons, right? So that they will be triggered and begin to think, in what sense are we kind of like that? And what, okay, so this should explain a little bit. Yes, he's not nuanced. It's a caricature. It's true, someone mentioned, did he even read the Christian scriptures? To a certain degree, but not enough in my view, right? There is some, it's not a very refined portrait, right? But it's on purpose. He's there to provoke, he's there to shock. He would, here in the United States, he would have been canceled a long time ago, right? Somebody like Nietzsche would not survive 5 minutes in our social climate, right? Yes, see.
So, like, would it be a valid criticism to say that he speaks as if he's completely right?
Yeah. But of course, this is a show, right? He's putting on a show for us. And some of you really caught on and you were like kind of enjoying, right, the ride and feeling kind of like, wow, why am I enjoying this, right? So yes, it's a big show. It's theater, right? It's on purpose very coarse and very unnuanced and in your face and not completely true, right? So that you're there, what? How dare you? And then you will respond and think. So if you're coming from a Christian background, this is really an opportunity to think. What is he saying that is actually, because some of it is true actually, and we'll look at that today. Some of what he's saying is deeply true, and some of it is a little bit off, right? But as a Christian, one has to start really thinking deeply and about how to respond to Nietzsche. In fact, I say in the introductory lecture, Nietzsche is a rite of passage. You cannot get to an adult spiritual level if you don't go through Nietzsche, right? Whether you're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, if you don't take Nietzsche seriously, you can't get to the next level, adult level of spirituality, right? So, okay, so I wanted to respond to that. What else did I write? I can't read my writing. One of you asked a really honest question. So one of you really agrees with Nietzsche, yes, we have to break free from religion and so forth, but finds it really hard. I love the way this student put it. They said, yeah, when you start to transgress your own religion's precepts, right, you get some kind of PTSD from doing that, right? For anyone who's been from a religious background, you know that when you start to move away, it's like a trauma. You start to get, all kinds of, yes, I really like the expression PTSD, post-traumatic stress. You get a lot of stress, right, from trying to move away. So this student is asking, how can I walk the path that Nietzsche is proposing without having this, this religion hanging over my head and giving me trauma and PTSD as I'm trying to move away, right? So I will answer that question. It's a very honest question. Here's how I do it. I actually have become a master in finding in the religious text what people like Nietzsche are saying. So this is my way. I actually go to philosophy, I see all of the criticisms, and then I go back to the scripture and I'm able to find similar ideas, similar path in the very scriptures that I belong to, right? So, which means that I can always be kind of an insider-outsider, right? I still belong to the faith, but I have found within the faith pockets that think like Nietzsche, or that think like Maimonides belongs, that think like Nietzsche, or like the philosophers will have later on, right? So it is actually very possible to stay within your framework and find within the scripture evidence for, or books or passages that are echoing some of these philosophers. So this is how I've pulled it off, right? In my own practice, right? I've become really good at finding, in my case, in the Hebrew Bible, texts, entire books scriptures which resonate deeply with some of these very subversive thinkers, right? They're there. And I'm sure you can do the same with Islam. In Islam, in the context of Christianity, if you go to the texts, even within the Quran, these texts are rich enough to encompass multiplicity of voices, right? But very often they're taught like there's only one voice, right? This is the problem. It's not the text. The text has many, many rich voices, but they are taught by an elite, which makes them sound like they have only one voice. And this is especially true of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. But the other voices exist, right? Even in Islam, in Judaism, and Christianity, you have text, you have traditions, you have if you just look at, just taking the example of Islam, you look at the relationship the Prophet had with his wives, extremely progressive, right? I mean, he had one wife who took care of all his business, right? She was in charge of this man's finances, right? And then he had a younger wife, the youngest, who he just melted. He would listen to everything she said, like she was his guru, right? So you can really always find within any tradition some of these rebellious voices, right? This has become my specialty. So, okay, we'll never get to Nietzsche. Let me do one more. Can't read this anymore, so sorry for that person. Yes, there was an interesting observation of the differences between Christianity and Judaism when it comes to the passions. I think that was you. I'm just going to tell this story because it's actually pretty good. It will give you a really good distinction. So in the Hebrew Bible, there is a law which has to do with, I guess, what do you call it when you have a war and then you have the...
Prisoners of war.
Yes, but more than that, it's really talking about the rape of women. More than that, because it's like, this is really alluding to, what do you call it when there's a rape in times of war? Huh? Not pillaging, but, this is a practice, right? You go to war, you kill the men and you rape the women. So in the Hebrew Bible, it's like, oh, the captive woman. But this is really a context where you have the women who are from the enemy, and traditionally, in a wartime, you can just take those women, do whatever you want with them, and then throw them away. Hebrew Bible says, okay, yes, you can have that captive woman. Starts there, right? Yes, you can have any woman you want in the battlefield. Ooh, okay, so everybody's excited, but, says the text, that woman, you must first take her in your home. Okay, cool, no problem. After you take her in your home, you have to shave her head. Oh, that makes it much less interesting. Then she must be allowed to mourn for 30 days for her husband. Okay, now you have this bald woman sitting in your house, mourning, right, dressed in ashes and crying. After 30 days, you can have her. Deal? Okay, so this is just giving you an idea how the Hebrew, and this happens over and over again in the Hebrew context. There's, yes, you can rape anyone you want, but here's how you're going to do it, right? By the time you get to the 30 days, you're so sick and tired of this bald woman in your house, you don't even touch her. You send her back to her relatives, right? So this is the idea. So kind of very intelligent way, kind of not even cunning way of dealing with the passions, right? In the Hebrew Bible. Hebrew Bible is very aware that passions cannot be controlled. And so it finds ways to calm them down a bit. When you have that bald woman 30 days, you're not going to be as excited about her anymore, right? So kind of very, very smart way, which Nietzsche, I think, would be quite happy with, right? In the New Testament, however, in the Christian Bible, it's a little different. And we'll talk about that. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm going to summarize briefly Nietzsche because we'll see. We're going to have him for the next couple times. Okay, so Nietzsche, basically, this is his criticism of Christianity, right? It's not so much that Christianity is against the passions. That's only a symptom. Okay, the real issue is that Christianity is against life. Christianity, in a way, has a profound distrust and a profound disrespect and a profound wants to separate from life, which it considers to be deeply corrupt, deeply evil, right? So the passions, they're just the part of us which wants to go into life, right? Anytime you feel a desire, it's really life inviting you into itself. So for example, you have a desire for someone. You want to love them or something else, right? This is life calling you, right? Or you have desire, you have ambition, right? This is also life calling you. Or you have a hunger for something. Again, life calling. So passions is just the part in us which responds to the call of life, right? This is what the passions are. But the real culprit is not the passions, it's life, right? So this is what Nietzsche is saying. The real issue is the hatred of life, and therefore the hatred of anything in us which is drawn to life. And this is what the passions are. The passions is that part of us which is constantly attracted to life, right? There are 7, what do you call it? Thank you, deadly sins or deadly passions, actually. We can make a list right now so you get an idea. Anybody know the list of the 7 deadly sins? Yes, Amoroso?
Wrath, lust, gluttony, greed, pride.
Doing good.
I think I'm forgetting.
Jealousy and sloth. Okay, everybody write down. Lust, wrath, gluttony with 2 T's, sloth, jealousy, pride, greed. 7 deadly sins, but coincidentally also 7 passions. 7 ways that life calls out to us. Through lust, we are called out of ourselves towards another human being. Wrath, we are called to act or to transform or to destroy, right? Gluttony, we're hunger, right? We are called to partake of the bounties of life. Sloth, we're called to just rest, right? Jealousy, called to get what that other person has. Pride, called to stand up, right? Greed, called to get anything else that's left out there, right? Do you see how the passions are simply life calling out to us and us responding to life and wanting all of it, right? Passion is us wanting all of life, grabbing onto life, right? But the problem is not the passions, the problem is life. You're wanting something bad. That's the issue for Christianity. Stop wanting something bad. Stop wanting. That's the idea in Christianity, right? Stop wanting. Okay? So Nietzsche, of course, is completely outraged, right? First of all, his first criticism is, why is life supposed to be so evil and corrupt? Where did Christianity get this idea? It's very interesting. We're going to talk about that. Christianity actually doesn't get this idea from its founder, right? Who is, of course, Jesus. Doesn't exist, this idea, in the Gospels. Gets this idea, actually, we're going to find out, from Greek thought, from Platonism, right? So we're going to get to that. But for now, Nietzsche is on a rant. So he's looking at the way Christianity functions, and he's asking very legitimate question, which is very true of Christianity. Christianity does have a tendency to hate life. I mean, you go to any church, they will tell you, us and the world. It's very, 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 this is the dichotomy of Christianity. This is a big problem, in my view, right? The church is us, we are good, we're doing the right thing, and out there is the big bad world, don't go there. Don't go to this place, don't go to that place, don't be friends with this person, don't marry that person, don't eat that, don't do this, don't go there. World is big bad place. And we have to stay apart from the world, right? Very different from the Jewish way where, yeah, you can go in the world, but like this, right? Like that. And they make it kind of hard, right? But in Christianity, it's paf, no, you can't do that, you can't go there, you can't eat that, you cannot be with that person. It's a kind of very absolute, right? And so this is very true. Christianity does have a tendency, if you go to any church, no matter how progressive, there will be the same discourse of the world as something to avoid. And Nietzsche is saying, why are you people like this? Right? Why do you hate the world? What's so bad about the world? Is it that you hate the world because you hate suffering? In that case, you are weak and cowardly and you don't deserve to live. That's in essence, right, what Nietzsche is saying. Those who hate the world are those who are not strong enough to face the world. They are afraid to suffer. They are afraid to go through trouble and challenges. And so these people are weak. They have no backbone. And they deserve to die. So that's in essence, and he's very angry, right? This is very passionate. Basically, he's passionately standing up for life and saying, why is life bad? Why are we so afraid of it, right? Very similar kind of to, remember Job, right? He was kind of afraid to live. He was always trying to shield himself. And Nietzsche actually would be very much in line with the author of the book of Job, right? Remember when we saw that God in the book of Job is inviting Job into life and telling him, don't be afraid, just go out there, make your mistakes, right? Very much in line with Nietzsche, right? Okay. So let's look now at the text, and then I want to respond to Nietzsche. I will also respond from the context of Christianity because he deserves a response. Okay, what page am I on? Can someone guess? Thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, I'm going to stick to this paragraph, Morality as Anti-Nature, page 52. We're going to read a little bit, and you will see the ideas we've been talking about in the text, right? He begins. There is a time, with all passions, when they are merely fatalities, when they drag their victim down with the weight of their folly. So he begins actually by agreeing with Christianity. Passions, if they're not controlled, they can kill you. It's true. If you can't control your hunger, if you can't control your desire for sex, and you can't control your greed, you're going to kill yourself overindulging, right? So he agrees. But then he says this. Problem is the way we deal with the passions. And there he begins with Christianity. Formerly, talking about Christianity, one made war on passion itself on account of the folly inherent in it. One conspired for its extermination. All the old moral monsters are unanimous that il faut tuer les passions. Okay, so war on passions. That's what he's saying. Passions, yes, we need to navigate the passions, but the problem with Christianity just castrates, kills the passions. It's war, right? Passions are bad. We have to, the French there that he's writing, il faut tuer les passions, it literally means we have to kill the passions, right? And so forth. And then he quotes the New Testament out of context, completely besides the point, but that's okay. He's doing a caricature, right? And then, of course, he continues with his criticism, right? I'm skipping a little bit. To exterminate the passions, are you there? Yes. To exterminate the passions and desires merely in order to do away with their folly, blah, blah, blah. This itself seems to us an acute form of folly, right? So he's really criticizing this approach, which is really exists within Christianity. I mean, if you look, I'll give you a little bit of a history, right? Even starting, I'm going to show today that the Gospels kind of escaped the criticism. But when you go to the later texts, just to give you an idea of the Christian Bible, there's two main sections. Maybe you should write this down. That way you can understand. Two main sections in the Christian Bible. First section is what we call the Gospels, Gospels. And this is simply the eyewitness account of the life and teachings of Jesus, right? Jesus being the founder of Christianity. But then you have the writings of Paul. So Paul actually is a very interesting person. He was trained as a Pharisee, so he was a rabbi, correspond to the rabbi today, but he was also trained in Greek thought. If you recall, Paul was not only a Jew, he was also a Roman citizen. So he knew Greek, he knew the Greek culture, right? Rome at that time was predominantly, the culture was Greek, right? Even though it was the Romans. So he is kind of a dual citizen. He's very much a Jew and he's very much also a Greek, right? So when he's writing, you get both strands. You get profoundly Jewish thought, but you also get a lot of Greek thinking in his writings. And this is why you have passages in Paul where he's talking about the difference or the separation of the flesh versus the spirit, right? The flesh, the body, the spirit is the soul, and we have to kill the flesh in order to reach a higher spiritual state. This is Greek language. This is not Hebrew language anymore. This is Greek language. This is Plato. Did we do Plato? We did a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Barely.
Movie,
The cave, right? Remember the cave? 2 dimensions. What are the 2 dimensions? Remember now? What are the 2 dimensions in Plato that we are in?
Cave and outside.
Yes, and what does the cave represent? The physical and then the spiritual, right? So, and we have to go where? In the physical or in the spiritual? What's the ideal for Plato? Which direction should we going?
Spiritual.
Right, we have to leave the material, go towards the spiritual. The material is corrupt. The material is the cave. Paul, when he's talking about the flesh and the spirit, He's just repeating Plato, right? And so, of course, we have to read Paul carefully, right? Which Nietzsche is not doing, because he actually, he's more subtle than that, right? But he has the language of the Greeks. But if you were to read him carefully, you would see that he's able to really blend this language with the Hebrew thinking, but that's a whole other ballgame, right? But Paul, in the language already, and Christians kind of took over this idea, the flesh, the spirit, the war against the flesh, and so forth. But really, the main issue here, so, and then, okay, so Paul starts it, then you have the church fathers building on Paul, but also completely permeated, infiltrated by Greek thought. And so for them, the highest ideal, obviously, if you know the Greek culture, highest ideal is away from the body. So you have the whole monastic movement, the monks, okay, the vow of poverty, the vow of chastity, the vow of, what's the third? Is there a third? Somebody know? Where are my Catholics? Catholics? No Catholics, no Catholics. Anyways, you know the thing with the monks, right? They don't have partners, they're poor, they try to really leave behind all the passions of the world, right? And of course, stay away from the woman as much as possible, right? This is part of Greek thought, right? This is, the Greeks were thinking like that, right? And then you have now, present day, right, especially in the States, you have either Catholicism or evangelical Christianity, and you still have this notion of us, them, the world over here, us over here, right? So this is not so far-fetched what Nietzsche is saying, right, about Christianity. There is a tendency in Christianity to hate life, right? Now, I want to respond because even though it's true that in the practice of Christianity, in the way that Christianity has evolved as a religion, we have gone into this very Greek direction. But when you go to the original text, meaning the four Gospels, you don't find this idea anymore, right? And so Nietzsche, in a way, is criticizing what Christianity has become, but he has missed what Christianity used to be. You see my technique? I'm going, I'm going into the text and I'm finding, Nietzsche, right, actually would agree with this, right? And so now I can completely inhabit the text, right, as I was saying before, right, while being a Nietzschean, right? So that's the idea. So I want to take you to a very interesting story in the Gospels. Because when we look at the life and teachings of Jesus, we do not see this hatred of the world that Nietzsche sees in what Christianity has become. We do not see this. And I will give you a very powerful example, a story, which will drive this home for you, this idea that the life and teachings of Jesus have, in a way, Nietzsche would be very sympathetic or interested, I think, in, actually he is. If you read other texts that Nietzsche is writing about Christianity, there is in Nietzsche a profound respect for the life and teachings of Jesus, interestingly. In fact, he even compares Jesus to the Greek god Dionysos, and there's a whole thing like that going on. But so Nietzsche actually has immense respect for the founder of Christianity, for Jesus, but he doesn't like what Christianity became. And it became that. Why? Let's remind me. Why did Christianity lose its original message? What happened? See if you all got that. What happened to Christianity? Exactly. The Greek element, the infiltration of Greek thought is what led Christianity away, in my view, from the teachings of its founder, right? So it's not so much the teachings of Jesus that are on trial today, it's the teachings of Plato, right? So what Nietzsche is really criticizing, make sure you write this down, what Nietzsche is really criticizing cannot be the teachings of Jesus. We'll see that. It's the teachings of Plato. Is the way that Platonic thought has infiltrated Christianity. Now let me bring you to this beautiful story in the Gospel of John, which you can read for yourself. I think is John chapter 2. You can read that at home. It's the story of a wedding. Okay, anybody know the story, the wedding of Cana? I think some of you studied it with me, so you know. So I will tell you the story. And then you will tell me the elements there that Nietzsche would be actually quite sympathetic with. You will tell me how Jesus is actually very much in line with what Nietzsche is teaching. Okay, this is a wedding. This is just at the beginning of when Jesus was not well known. He was still working as a carpenter. He had a few friends, a few disciples, but he was kind of still in obscurity. And he's invited to a wedding. And his mother is part of the wedding committee. So they're there, they're having fun, he's enjoying himself with his friends and so forth, and all of a sudden his mother comes to him, pulls him apart, and she tells him they have no more wine. And he looks at her and he's like, so? And his mother is like, she just leaves. She goes to the servants and she's like, whatever he tells you to do, do it. So she knows what this guy is capable of, right? I mean, she birthed him, so she knows his powers, but he's not ready, right? He's not ready to use any of these powers. But she's kind of brushes him off. She tells him they have no wine. Then she moves to the servants and says, whatever he tells you to do, do it. Okay, now Jesus is like, okay, well, I guess I got to do something now. So he gets up, goes to the servants, and he says, what do you have? What have you got? And they're like, well, the only thing we have right now is water. Big jars in the courtyard full of water that we use usually for purification. And he's like, okay, take the jars, go in the party, and start pouring into the glasses of the people. Now, this is water. The servants are like, okay. They're a little bit afraid because, this is, I mean, you can get fired for this. Like, you go in with a big purification jar, right, and start pouring water. And that doesn't look good. But anyway, they do it. They start pouring. And what comes out? Anybody know? Wine, right? First miracle. Wine comes out, and then people are ecstatic about this wine, right? They're like, oh my God, this is the best wine I've ever had, right? They call the host of the party. They're like, why you keep the best wine for last when we're already drunk? We cannot enjoy it. You're supposed to serve it in the beginning. What are you doing, right? So this turns out amazing party, right? This is the first story. No teaching. Jesus did not open his mouth, right? But it's a powerful miracle laden with meaning, right? If we were to go into the meaning of that story and what it says about the overall direction that Jesus' teachings are going to take, we can say a lot about that. But just looking at that story, tell me how Nietzsche would be actually intrigued, interested, would find it very much in line with what he's trying to do. Let's hear you on this. How is Jesus Nietzsche's friend in that story? How would Nietzsche feel very close, right? Yes.
I don't know if this is far-fetched or not, but I would say it's probably because, like, the whole kind of God made flesh is okay with people indulging in something like alcohol. It's like them enjoying their life. They're like, like drunken bliss. They're like having fun doing something that typically religion would be like, you're not supposed to get drunk. You're not supposed to enjoy yourself with like substances and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So the whole fact that he would even do a miracle which allows people to do that would probably make me be like, okay, so he's for life and for passion instead of against it.
You got it, right? I mean, Jesus is not only is he not sitting there politely waiting for everyone to stop drinking so he can, make a sermon or something, right? He's participating, fueling the wine for the party, right? So this is worse than we thought. Like, we would understand a rabbi who is polite and, okay, you guys want to drink, I won't say anything, I'll smile and I'll wait, right? Jesus is actually part of the party. He's part of he's actually fueling the intoxication of the party, right? So Nietzsche would be quite intrigued. In fact, Nietzsche compares Jesus to Dionysus, the god of wine. And if you know Dionysus, he's also the god of ecstasy, the god of wildness, the god that cannot be controlled, right? He's seeing parallels between the way Jesus taught and lived and the Greek god Dionysus, and he's quite intrigued, right? So absolutely. So you're seeing there in this, you have already several sins that Jesus seems to be encouraging, right? You have wine, you have sex, right? The wedding party. You have feasting, right? Gluttony. I mean, we can go through all of them, right? I'm pretty sure we can find the 7 deadly sins encouraged here by the person of Jesus, right? So just, and then of course he can, this is just the beginning, right? Throughout his short time on earth, right? Jesus not only taught the importance of dwelling in the world, right? He also was very much in tune with human desire. This is another profound characteristic of Jesus, was that he would respond to human desire. Anyone who came to Jesus and says, I want, right? Jesus would respond positively, right? He was so in this context, right, the way you put it nicely, the incarnation of God, right, or the presence of God, or the manifestation of God, is in fact, what Jesus is showing is that God responds to our desires, that God actually is, how shall I put it? Not triggered, but I can't find my words, this is terrible. I'll just stick to what I said before, right? God in, yes, you want to help me? Wait, say it louder, because the mask.
Like it's like how in Job, where God only really started to actually like acknowledge Job when he's exuding passion.
Yes. I love it. Thank you, Amoroso, right? Just like in Job, when Job starts to be compassionate, right? This is when he begins to get to know God, right? This is when God starts to be finally pleased with him, right? Finally, you're alive. Same way, right? When we start to be compassionate, in a way, it moves something in the heart of God when he sees a human being who is completely passionate about something. This has an effect on God, right? He resonates with that. At least, right, if we take Jesus to be the presence of God on earth, if we take Jesus to be the representation of God, then we can safely say God is moved by our desires. God is moved. He's affected. He resonates with our desires. He loves it when we come alive, right? In that way. So I just wanted to. I think the person who said, I forget who it was, but that was a very good point in the reading assignment. That did Nietzsche read the original text, right? He did, right? I think, but he's of course being on purpose annoying. But this is really, he's aware of the way that Jesus moved, right? And he admires very much Jesus, but not Christianity, right? For him, Christianity has parted ways with the original teachings of Jesus. And I think it's safe to say that for Nietzsche, if Christianity went back to the teachings of Jesus, he might become a Christian, right? If Christianity was courageous enough, was audacious enough to really follow the teachings of Jesus, Nietzsche would probably be quite comfortable, right, in this kind of Dionysian religion. So good. So you see how I did this, right? So those of you who are wondering, how do I leave my religion to follow in the footsteps of Nietzsche? Those of us who are attracted to what Nietzsche is saying, but feel like it's very hard to leave behind that faith, I showed you how you can take Nietzsche and find him in your faith. He's there. You can find any philosopher. I think Maimonides was a big, he used to say that, right? That you can find any philosopher in the Hebrew scriptures, right? You don't have to leave your faith. You just have to dig deeper, and you will find these rebel voices and these voices that have been shut down by the clergy. They're still there, right? Yes, Inoyato.
When the text becomes so malleable and so subject to your interpretation, it essentially just becomes a reflection of external ideas that you're engaging in. So what value is the text itself? What is the text itself brings to the table?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, right? I would not go and find Nietzsche, for example, in the teachings of Moses, right? But I can find Nietzsche in the teachings of Job, right? So, which, by the way, Moses also authored, right? So, yeah, kind of very wide, right? But so not any text is going to resonate with the teachings of, for example, Nietzsche, but some do, and it's there, right? If you look at the teachings of Job, everything that I taught on Job, you find in the text. So I'm not saying go there and read whatever you like. You can't. We are still bound by the text. But there are many texts, in my view, especially in the Hebrew Bible and in the Christian Bible, which have been under-excavated, right? They have been read by an elite who were usually male and who were usually European and so forth. And so we've missed some of the other facets. That's my point. They're there. I would never say read into the text. It's there, but you need a certain perspective to see it, right? Yeah. You can't say anything. Absolutely, no. You have to respect the text, right? The text you have to respect the text. But some people, this is why I really encourage I really think this is lacking. There are not enough women, there are not enough minorities, there are not enough members of the LGBT community reading these texts. And so we have one perspective, and we're missing all of the other perspectives, which are there. I mean, some perspectives are hard to find, but you can find certain texts which really resonate with these other perspectives, right? Remember, did I ever do you the bottle example? This is I always like do this to trick you. Let's do it. So, ready? It's a trick. Be careful. Can you all see my bottle?
Yeah.
Yes? Actually, none of you can, right? You only see this side. You see that side. You see this side. Together, we see the bottle. There are things I cannot see. You only can see it from your perspective as a woman, Muslim woman. You only can see it here from your perspective as a Jewish man, and you only can see it, right? So this is the thing, right? There are certain things, certain facets of the text that if you are not there, you cannot see. No, Yatav, go ahead.
Let's say one of us was wearing tinted glasses that were tinted pink, right? So would their subjective vantage point, which is simply a consequence of the fact that they're wearing these strangely colored glasses?
Yes, we all come with the, we all have those glasses, right? We're all subjective.
So we're all wearing those glasses, then, because it's not necessarily a function of reality. What we're seeing is just the consequence of
We still have to see an object, right? I believe in objectivity, right? The object is still there. She cannot see an elephant here, right? She's still going to see a bottle, but a different side of the bottle, right? There's not 1,000 things she can see, right? And neither you, right? So the object, in my view, remains very important. You have to see something which is there, which actually, by the way, when she sees it, you should be able to see it too if you go to her position, right? If I'm showing you something in the text that you don't see, it's not there. You have to see it too, right? Obviously. It's so funny when I have to say this is so much fun. When I teach these texts, I do the Book of Job, and I go and do it sometimes for pastoral classes for pastors, right? And at the beginning, it's like there's so much anger in the room, right? And so, but they can't say anything because it's there. Like I'm like, look, and so they're like that, and they're speechless, right? There's just emotion, but they cannot respond because I'm showing very clearly that the text can be read like that, right? So absolutely, we cannot say anything we want. But there are many facets, in my view, in the scripture that we have missed because we have only looked at it from one vantage point. We're missing the other sides of that scripture. Does that make sense? Kind of? Okay, good. So that's, where was I? How did I get there? Somebody help me. Where was I?
Christianity parted ways from the original teaching because they weren't brave enough, yes, or courageous enough to follow the original teaching.
Yes.
Also, you could find Nietzsche and other philosophers in the text.
Ah, yes. Yes, and we don't see it often because we are not looking for him. But if we're looking for it, or we're coming from a Nietzschean perspective, it is easy, not in every text, you're right. You cannot read Deuteronomy and find Nietzsche, right? The book of Deuteronomy, or you cannot read maybe the book of Genesis. But there are certain books in the Bible, clear law, forget it, right? But there are other books which are the wisdom books, which will, because they're philosophical, they will automatically resonate with other philosophical perspectives, right? So really an invitation, right? Yeah, so I think that's what I was saying. Thank you, Mahmoud, right? It is possible to be a Nietzschean and a Christian, or to be a Nietzschean and a Jew, because the scripture is rich enough that you can find, not everywhere, but there are spaces in the scripture where you will find voices like Nietzsche's, right? Yes?
If it's possible to find so many different philosophical perspectives from one reading, how do you know which perspective to follow?
So the scripture, usually you can have several different interpretations for one story, right? But you can't have an infinite amount of interpretations. So for example, the book of Job. One classic interpretation, which is also true, is that if you're faithful to God, you'll be okay in the end, correct? It's the book of Job, right? Classic. And then there's another layer that if you're rebellious against God, you'll be okay in the end. Opposite views, both there in the text. You see what I'm saying? Because rebellion is a form of faithfulness, perhaps. Aha, right? If you rebel, means you're passionate, means you're entangled with God, means you're wrestling with God, and that's faith in the Hebrew Bible, right? So you saw how we can have two opposite views based on the same text, but you can't go around and say, yeah, there is no God based on Job. It's not there. You can't do it, right? So you can't say infinite amount of things about the text, but you can certainly have several views on one text. And this is what makes the text so inspired, in my view, that it breathes with us, That's what it means to inspire. Breathe, right? The text, it comes alive through the way that we look at it. And if we don't look at it, it just shrivels up and dies, right? But you can't make the text say what you want. You can come with a perspective and ask, is it there? And if it's not there, well, okay. If it's there, like, ooh, okay. So I do that all the time. I come to the wisdom text and I'm like, I wonder if this text has a feminist bent, or if this text, will sound like Nietzsche. And very often I can find a lot of friends within at least the Hebrew Bible, which is where I'm navigating. I always find there is so many voices there that I will find a Nietzsche in the text. And we saw with Job, right? And also Ecclesiastes and a bunch of others are like that. Make sense? Did I answer your question? Epstein, you good? You seem a little stressed. You're good? Okay, good. Okay, any other questions? Let's see where I am. Oh my God, 3 minutes. Okay, can I go over a little bit, please? Please? Thank you. We have to go into Nietzsche's solution. Now that we have destroyed Christianity, not completely because the founder is okay, right? Nietzsche would be cool with the founder of Christianity. Let's look at what Nietzsche proposes to do with the passions, right? Remember, he doesn't only destroy, he also builds, right? And there's 3 guidelines he gives us with regards to how we ought to navigate our passions. And this is from the bottom 5th line. It never asks, Christianity, how can one spiritualize, beautify, deify a desire? Okay, let's look at these 3 things. These are the 3 paths that Nietzsche proposes for us to deal with passion. So what does it mean to spiritualize a passion? Think of your worst urge and see if you could spiritualize it. Look at your deepest sin. Yes.
They're key to something good.
What? Yes, and how? Give me an example.
Let's take greed.
Greed.
Right? You have an urge to fulfill money and objectivity.
Yes.
But you can fuel that into pushing yourself, getting a high-paying job, working really hard, right?
Okay. And then you get the money.
And then you can get the money.
Is there more you can do with the money?
You can then take the money and then donate to charity. It's counteracting the greed.
I am. You're right. We have to stay with the greed. Yes, absolutely. If you're greedy, you're also driven. What? This is good, right? Who wants to be sitting back waiting for life to happen to them? This is horrible. Everybody's against that, including the Bible, right? But greed can become drive. It can become ambition. It can become hard work. It can become focus. And that's the way you spiritualize it, right? Give me another example. Take your worst sin, your darkest sin. Yes?
Nietzsche himself gives the example of turning sensuality into lust through
the opposite.
love.
Yes. Absolutely. You have lust for a person. Okay. Now let it become love, right? We saw, we didn't, it's another class, right? The notion of when you have initial sexual attraction can develop into love, can develop into, a profound commitment, can develop even, to monogamous relationship, right? So the initial lust is not bad. For Nietzsche, this is so important. Our passions are neither good nor bad. They're forces, like nature, like lightning, like rain, like the ocean. They're forces, neither good or bad. But we need to refine those forces. And one of the ways we do that is to spiritualize. We take the force and we channel it towards something good. That's to spiritualize a passion. So that's the first path, how we can navigate these passions, right? Second, to beautify. Okay, this one I have to explain because you will not understand what that means. Okay. We have to understand the Greek concept of beauty in order to understand what he means by beautify. Nietzsche is very much, I know he bashes Christianity and Greek thought is an issue, and he did have an issue with Plato. But in general, Greek thought, Greek aesthetics, right, Greek beauty, Nietzsche enjoyed. And beauty in Greece was defined, there was a definition of what made something beautiful in Greece. Does anybody know? What is the criteria for beauty in the Greek context? Yes? Harmony, proportion, right? So, for example, take a human being, right? If they have a huge nose coming out, not beautiful, not proportionate, right? Now, if the nose is proportionate to the cheekbones and the eyes, and the eyes are not too close, not too far, right? The hair is not too poofy, not too straight. Proportion is beauty. Right? So for the Greeks, if you had something sticking out, right, big ears or whatever, forget it. You're done. No beauty. But if everything is in proportion, you're beautiful, right? So proportion was the criteria of beauty. Now, how do we beautify a passion? Based on this definition, yes. Excellent, right? No excess. You have a passion. Let's say you like to eat. No excess either way. Don't starve. Don't, what's the word? Binge, right? Proportion, beauty in the way you do it. You eat, you make it elegant, you do it proportionate, you don't do any excess, right? Same thing with, I don't know, what's some of the others? Sloth, right? Sloth means laziness. You rest a little, but not too much, right? Lust, you lust a little, but not too much. Proportion, that's the beauty. That's the way that you live your life artfully, like an artist. Your passions, always, you bring them into something beautiful, moderate, proportion. And finally, to deify a desire, what does that mean? Yes? No, okay, no. To deify, yes. To deify, that's the third one, to deify, yes. Huh? Louder. Ooh, except there's no God for Nietzsche, so find another way to say this, but you're on the right track. That's the spiritualizing one already. So we got that. It's a little different. So what would it mean? There's no God, right? But should they find a desire instead of what? What do Christians do with our desires? They demonize. So what does it mean to deify? Yes? To respect it, to honor it, to celebrate it, to worship it, right? Instead of being bad, instead of demonizing and putting down, you elevate. My desires are beautiful. My desires are holy. My desires, I respect them. I honor them. I celebrate them. And that's how you pull through, right? So, excellent. I'm glad you guys are liking Nietzsche. We'll do one more. But very, very nice responses from this class. Really nice readings of Nietzsche in the reading assignments. So congratulations for being the best one I've ever had in 15 years of teaching. Okay, great. All right, we'll stop the recording.